Out of all the spin-off series from the Mario universe, Mario Kart has always been the most popular. Hell, it wouldn't be hard to call Mario Kart more popular than the main Super Mario games, especially during the mid-2000s. Mario Kart DS and Mario Kart Wii were lighting up sales charts as some of the best-selling Mario games of all time. So it shouldn't be surprising that the next Mario Kart game, Mario Kart 7, released on the Nintendo 3DS in 2011, was also very successful. This was another game I played a lot as a kid, but nowadays I barely ever play this game unless it's for a video like right now. It's strange because this is another solid Mario Kart game, and the features it introduced like gliding, underwater driving, and kart customization were all great new additions. However, despite what it brought to the table, Mario Kart 7 didn't shake the world nearly as much as DS or Wii, and often gets lost in the conversation, and that stinks because this is a really fun game, and the track selection is excellent. So today, it's time to continue our quest and rank every track in the game, both for racing and battling. Let's go! 32, Luigi Raceway. Man, Luigi is not bringing it in the Mario Kart department. The track design is unbelievably basic. There's barely anything to trick off, and the only upgrade from the original is that you can drive on the bleachers, which isn't even faster than the regular racetrack. 31, Toad Circuit. For the first track in the game, it does its job as a beginner course, but compared to everything else, it's incredibly simple. There's a couple spots to take shortcuts, a gliding ramp appears for the last 2 laps, and there's some really ginormous toad balloons. But that's about it. 30, Mario Circuit 2. The track is very flat, and the only obstacles are some pipes and a couple puddles of oil, but at least the course design is a bit more interesting, and the final jump at the end has been changed into a gliding ramp, so that's kinda cool. 29, Bowser Castle 1. This is by far the most boring-ass Bowser Castle in the series, but the 3DS at least tries to make it more interesting. All the jumps are now speed ramps that can be tricked off, and the last 2 laps have a gliding ramp. But going off the last few tracks I've mentioned, this isn't anything special. 28, Koopa Troopa Beach. As simple as this track is, there's some fun to be had. You've got some crabs walking around, a few speed ramps with some of them letting you take a shortcut, and you can now drive through the water, allowing you to finish the race even faster. 27, Cheep Cheep Lagoon. It's similar to Koopa Troopa Beach, but now the track mostly takes place underwater. You'll find some Cheep Cheeps and clams hanging around. You'll also go inside this massive cave with more underwater driving, or you might get a chance to do some gliding, whichever you prefer. 26, SNES Rainbow Road. The most infamous track from Super Mario Kart returns in Mario Kart 7, but thankfully, it's much more manageable here. The road is a bit wider, so you don't have to worry about falling down as much, and the thwomps now make the road all wavy when they crash down, which is a nice touch. 25, Daisy Hills. Would you look at that? Daisy owns some hills. Good for her. There's also a few goats roaming around, which is cool, I guess. And when you glide back to the end, you get to see some hot air balloons and land in a small town. This is a perfectly okay track, but it's painfully generic. 24, Mario Circuit. This is definitely my favorite Mario Circuit of the entire series. It's nothing amazing, but it's the most distinct in my opinion. Speeding by the pink trees with petals flying through the air, getting to briefly drive through Peach's castle, and then shooting out the side and gliding to the final section helps make this version of Mario Circuit very memorable. 23, Calamari Desert. One of the coolest tracks from Mario Kart 64. It has a train, for God's sake. The remake on 7 also adds a few ramps scattered across the road, and there's even a couple gliding ramps you can use if you have a mushroom. I enjoy this one because it's much more relaxing than your typical Mario Kart track, and the more simple design actually works really well here. 22, Dino Dino Jungle. While not my favorite Double Dash course, having a track themed around around dinosaurs is really cool. You'll have to weave your way around dinosaur feet, choose between multiple splitting paths, and zoom through this giant cave with water shooting out of the ground. 21. Shy Guy Bazaar. This track is giving me serious Aladdin vibes for some reason. You get to drive through a small marketplace, you've got these awesome Shy Guys riding on magic carpets, and having the course take place at night helps it stand out in a really good way. 20. Rock Mountain. I love tracks that make you feel like you're on an epic adventure, and Rock Mountain delivers on that and then some. It starts off pretty simple with you driving through this path carved into the mountain, but then you come flying out this opening and glide into the clouds, making you feel like a real badass. You then land in this forest and have to avoid a couple trees, and finally you climb up this massive incline with boulders falling down and glide back to the start. The track's theme is admittingly nothing we haven't seen before, but the execution is great. 19. Wario Shipyard. For some reason, I keep forgetting this one existed, which is weird because it's actually pretty good. The track is themed around sunken pirate ships, so you'll be doing a lot of underwater driving. There's a couple splitting paths, some pipes blowing air, and a few crabs to watch out for. I especially love this part where you glide to the end and fly past all the broken down pirate ships. Just something about this moment helps it stand out quite a bit. 18. Rosalina's Ice World. Currently, this is the only track in the series that's dedicated to Rosalina, and it's a lot of fun. You'll drive through caverns with spikes of ice sticking out, drive either on top of or under a frozen lake with penguins swimming around, and the whole track has this mysterious yet magical feeling to it. Honestly, the only thing holding it back is that, like Wario Shipyard, it's not very memorable. It's just missing something to make it truly great. 17. Neo Bowser City. Yeah, that's right. Bowser has traded in his castle for an entire fucking city, and it's one banger of a track. Because it's raining, the track is very slippery, which makes these turns a lot harder to get through than you may think, and there's a few puddles of water to avoid near the end. There's not a lot of major gimmicks or features in this track, but I find it so damn cool, and the futuristic visuals and music help with that drastically. 16. Mushroom Gorge. Now we're getting into the truly great courses. This track is filled to the brim with mushrooms, and you have to quickly and carefully bounce on them to get to the finish line. Jumping off the mushrooms is so satisfying, and there's even one that lets you glide for a little bit. I still prefer the original on the Wii, but this remake isn't far off. 15. Piranha Plant Slide. Underground levels have been a staple in Mario games ever since the beginning, so having a track based around them just makes sense. The first half has you heading down into the sewers with tons of rushing water. There's also a few Goombas and a giant piranha plant chomping down at you, and the second half has you speeding through a completely flooded pipe before heading back to the start. I really like this track. The theme is great, and it allows for a really energetic race. 14. DK Pass. Donkey Kong sure loves his mountains, doesn't he? What makes this track so great to me is that it perfectly balances being peaceful and frantic at the same time. The theme of a snowy mountain combined with the calm music gives off more peaceful vibes, but then you've got giant snowballs trying to crush you, snowmen to maneuver around, and a bunch of ramps to trick off that make it more frantic. I don't know what it is, but I've really enjoyed this track, and it's nice to replay. 13. Luigi's Mansion. Now this is a much better Luigi track compared to Luigi Raceway. The course feels like it was pulled straight out of the GameCube game, zooming through the mansion itself with paintings shaking on the wall, speeding through a giant graveyard that now has a gliding ramp, and the final portion is a large mud section with walking trees. I only wish this track was a bit longer, but other than that, it's amazing. 12. Woohoo Loop. To all you Wii Sports Resort fans out there, do I have a track for you. This track has you exploring Woohoo Island, and boy is it fun to race on. There's a few cars driving around, there's tons of splitting paths and places to take shortcuts, and this is actually the very first track in the series to not have laps, and instead, it has 3 different sections of the race. And that music, man, it's a remix of the Wii Sports theme, and it makes the whole experience that much cooler. 11. Maka Woohoo. This is pretty much the same as Woohoo Loop, but it now takes place at sunset. I also think the course has a few more track elements that make it more interesting. Honestly, it's up to which one you prefer, but to me, Maka Woohoo has a slight edge over Woohoo Loop. 10. DK Jungle. I love Donkey Kong Country Returns, so seeing a track themed around that game is phenomenal. You'll bounce off huge flowers and drive past some tiki heads, visit this golden temple with the tastiest banana I've ever seen, and then come flying out the end with giant pillars screaming at you. This track takes the chaotic nature of Donkey Kong and amplifies it tenfold with this track. 9. Bowser's Castle. It's taken me a little while to warm up to this version of Bowser's Castle, but now it's one of my favorite versions. You start by gliding into Bowser's mouth and have to decide whether to take the top or bottom path. You then dip underwater with lava pouring from the top, and then you drive next to a river of lava with spires shooting from the bottom, and finally, you speed back to the beginning and do it 2 more times. Still not the best Bowser Castle in the series, but a damn great one. 8. Daisy Cruiser. Out of all the tracks to originate from Double Dash, this one's probably the most iconic. You drive on a cruise ship, and tons of cruise ship elements are implemented here. You've got the pool deck and can actually go in the pool this time. There's a dining room with tables sliding all over the place, and the hangar below deck is now flooded, which they should probably get fixed so the boat doesn't sink. This track makes me want to visit a cruise ship in real life. It's that awesome. 7. Music Park. The music in Mario Kart games has always been great, but Music Park takes it to a whole nother level. The whole track plays with you as you race. You'll drive on pianos and xylophones that actually play when you drive on them. You'll bounce off drums and glide by these dancing music notes, and of course, you can't resist the head-bopping piranha plants. I love this track, and it's one of the best original tracks Mario Kart 7 has to offer. 6. Airship Fortress. I know many people hate the airship levels in Mario Bros. 3, but trust me, this track is amazing. You start by having to avoid some bonsai bills and rocky wrenches on the ship's deck. Then you head below deck and have to avoid some crates and bars of fire, and finally, you shoot out of this cannon and into this tower, where you spiral back down to the start. However, the main thing I love about this remake is the slightly darker tone. It gives the track a sense of unease, which fits perfectly with a course like this. 5. Maple Treeway. Autumn may not be my favorite season, but it's represented wonderfully in this track. The beautiful fall colors and calming music, driving on the branches of giant trees that wave all over the place, and having to avoid huge wigglers stomping around, all of this combines to make one of the most pleasant and memorable tracks in the entire series. However, they got rid of the wavy bridge at the end and replaced it with a gliding section. Not as cool as the original, but still fine. 4. Koopa Cape. I enjoy the Wii version more, but I still love this course to death. The track starts off pretty simple with you going through this cave with Goombas waddling around, but then you're immediately heading down this river with rushing water speeding you up, and then you head into this underwater tube. Admittingly, this section was kind of ruined as there's no rushing water or electric spinning poles, but at least there's some Cheep Cheeps. And Cheep Cheeps are cool. This track isn't nearly as energetic as on the Wii, but it's still an excellent course. 3. Coconut Mall. Going to a mall can be nothing but chaos most of the time, but Coconut Mall takes that chaos and turns it into something truly spectacular. You go up and down escalators, cut through stores, and speed through the plazas, and then you glide down into the parking lot where you've got some idiots who don't know how to drive. The attention to real life is amazing, and I don't even have to mention the music that slaps so hard, or the fact that your Miis are scattered around the course to convince you that this track is awesome. 2. Waluigi Pinball. What's this? Waluigi Pinball isn't number 1? How dare I? Regardless, that doesn't change the fact that Waluigi Pinball is frickin' fantastic. The visuals, the music, the sound effects are all amazing. The track has so many crazy turns with dash panels scattered around, and then you get to the pinball table itself with bumpers and giant pinballs trying to crush you. To this day, this remains the most creative idea for a racetrack, and it will never not be incredible. 1. Rainbow Road. How is it that a handheld Mario Kart has the best Rainbow Road of all time? The only word I can use to describe this version of the iconic track is magical. Instead of just being the Rainbow Road, you explore space as a whole. You drive on Saturn's rings, on the surface of the moon with chain chomps rolling around, and you shoot out this rainbow tube and glide out with asteroids to fly around. No matter what Rainbow Roads come in the future, this will always hold up as one of the best, and is the greatest racetrack in Mario Kart 7. And now, it's time to exit racing mode and head into battle mode. We're back to just 6 battle maps this time, so this should go pretty quick. 6. Big Donut. It's a giant circle with a hole in the middle, so it is indeed a big donut. This remake does something interesting by adding some gliding in the middle, but other than that, this map is pretty boring. 5. Honeybee Hive. For one of the game's new battle maps, I didn't really care for this one that much. It's not bad, and the splitting paths do add some strategy, but it's just impossible to see the other racers most of the time, and the gimmicks like honey and bees flying around can be more annoying than cool. 4. GBA Battle Course 1. There's multiple splitting paths just like Honeybee Hive, but now you can actually see your opponents, making it easier to strategize. There's also a few rocky wrenches thrown in for added difficulty. 3. Sherbet Rink. The ice physics are thankfully not as intrusive as I thought they'd be, and you've got some penguins and other obstacles sliding around to watch out for. It's a good map, and it's fun to play on every now and then. 2. Palm Shore. I don't know how, but this map is way more fun to play on than it was on the DS. Now that you're able to drive underwater, the action remains fast the whole way through, making this map 1,000 times better. 1. Woohoo Town. What I love about this map is how ginormous it is. There's tons of buildings to drive by, a giant plaza for chaos to ensue, and the whole time you're battling here, it's just non-stop fun. Mario Kart 7 may not be the most memorable game in the franchise, but it's still a lot of fun, and a solid entry in the long line of Mario Kart games. But now that Mario Kart 7 is covered, it's time for the last of the mainline Mario Kart games. The game that is arguably the best of the bunch. The game with the biggest and best track selection in the entire series. The game that I've been mentally preparing for this whole year. It's time for the big one. But until then, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, then make sure to give it a like, and let me know down in the comments what your favorite track from this game is. Also, please subscribe with notifications on so you'll know when I post more videos like this. Have a great day, stay safe out there, and I will see you in the next one.